Our next speaker on the program is the wonderful Professor Felicia Huppert, Emeritus Professor of Psychology and Founding Director of the Wellbeing Institute at the University of Cambridge in the UK. And Felicia has been involved with our conferences for a long time, giving lots of advice on which speakers we could invite. And also, about over a decade ago, I think it was, Felicia gave me a tour of Cambridge when I was in the UK doing some research. And I think I even stayed at your place, didn't I? Yes. Wonderful. Now, just recently, Felicia was telling me about a group that's getting together talking about how to create the world we want to live in. And I thought, what a perfect topic for this conference. So here we are, Felicia Huppert, to speak on creating the world we want to live in, how positive psychology can build a brighter future. Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you, Beth, for that lovely introduction. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to take part in happiness and its causes. I'd like to start with a story. An Englishman, 3 English women, a Dutchman, an Icelander and an Aussie, met by chance in an airport departure lounge. They'd been to a positive psychology conference in France and were all feeling a bit dissatisfied because almost all the presentations had been about individual well-being, and they felt that positive psychology should go way beyond the individual to broader society. Little did they know what journey this chance meeting would take them on. They decided to meet to discuss how they could go about broadening the scope of positive psychology. Whenever the Aussie, yes, that's me, was in the UK, which was normally about 3 months of the year, which just happened to coincide with the Northern Hemisphere summer. Now, we weren't the only people who were trying to broaden positive psychology out beyond the individual, and we built on some of the work that others had done. But what I want to do is to share with you today the journey so far. And I'd like to begin with describing the framework that we used. It was an ecosystem framework of ever-widening circles emanating from the individual through the different levels out towards the global or planetary level. And of course, the well-being of an individual has an impact on those around them, and that in turn affects further layers of the ecosystem. And when individuals flourish, it has positive benefits throughout the ecosystem. But also when the outer circles flourish, that has positive benefits going back in towards the individual. So the effects go both ways. The question we asked ourselves was, what would it take to create flourishing at each level of this system? And this question is quite an urgent question because there's so many problems currently occurring at each of these levels. For example, there's the increasing polarization that we see in so many parts of the world. There's systemic racism. There's inequities in health, education, employment, and all the things that give people good chances in life. And of course, there's the very real threats to our physical environment. What we wanted to explore was the extent to which the positive psychology principles that had mainly been developed in relation to individuals could be used right across the ecosystem. The 5 principles that we focused on begin with feeling connected. We evolved as a social species, and the sense of belonging, the sense that we're cared for and care about others, have been described as a basic human need. If we don't feel we belong, if we feel socially excluded, this can elicit activation in brain areas that are the very same ones that are activated when we experience physical pain. As well as our connection with other humans and social systems, there's our connection with nature, which also has a profound effect on our well-being. And when we feel connected with nature, We're more likely to care for our wild spaces, our extraordinary species, and to preserve them for all and for future generations. The second of the principles is autonomy. The sense that we have some choice over what we do. Of course, complete autonomy is not possible because our choices need to be balanced against the needs of others. But some sense of autonomy is important, has been shown to be important in both collectivist cultures and individualist cultures. Feeling competent in what we do, able to function effectively, is another important contributor to well-being. Initially, when we encounter new situations or new ideas, we may feel incompetent. But if we treat these challenges, setbacks, even failures as learning opportunities, our capability will grow. In a world where complexity and uncertainty are increasing, the ability to learn and adapt is absolutely crucial across all levels of the ecosystem. The fourth of the principles is noticing what's going well. We have an inbuilt negativity bias which probably served us well in our evolutionary past, but no longer does so. Negativity is not conducive to our well-being, but what is recognizing what's going well rather than what's going wrong. Recognizing strengths within ourselves, within others, and within the wider world, rather than weaknesses. Research shows that having positive emotions and positive attitudes, such as happiness, gratitude, and optimism, are good for our physiology and behavior, for our health and life expectancy. And they also create a constructive place from which to tackle problems, be they personal problems, societal or global problems. And the final principle that I want to talk about is having a sense of meaning. This is the idea that what we do is significant and worthwhile. A sense of meaning gives us direction in our lives and motivates us to work towards valued goals, even when the going gets tough. A sense of meaning gives us vision and energy to create a positive difference right across all the different levels in the ecosystem. Now, underpinning these 5 principles are what we call 3 core capabilities. And they're core because the extent to which they are in evidence influences how effective the 5 principles are when implemented. The first of these is having an open mind. This is about being fully present, being aware of our experience as it unfolds from moment to moment. Now, why is this important? Well, a lot of the time we're caught up in the drama of our busy lives and our busy minds, and we may be reacting in habitual ways that may not be helpful. When we become aware of our experience, this allows us to see more clearly what's going on around us and what's going on inside us, and allows us to pause and decide how to respond in a wise way rather than reacting in an automatic way. The process whereby we can become more aware of our experiences is called mindful awareness. And what's impressive is that a whole generation of research, of high quality research, has now shown remarkable benefits of mindfulness training. Benefits for our physical and mental health, for cognitive function, including attention and problem solving, benefits for emotion regulation and indeed experiencing more positive emotions, as well as interpersonal benefits. Our relationships improve when we listen mindfully and when we communicate mindfully. And there's also a lot of emphasis now on mindful leadership and the benefits of that across an organisation, as well as mindful social action. So mindfulness is not just a self-centred thing, it actually has benefits way beyond the self. And if mindfulness has all these benefits, and if indeed it is a training for the mind in the same way that exercise is a training for the body, wouldn't we want to teach mindfulness to our young people? Last year, along with a very distinguished UK colleague, Catherine Weir, who's renowned for her work in social emotional learning, we published the Oxford Bibliography of Mindfulness and Education. And in this, we looked only at high quality research and found tremendous improvements in a wide range of processes, from academic performance to well-being and to personal and physical health, as well as decreases in many aspects of mental health problems and behavioural problems. So what's not to like about mindfulness in children and young people? Indeed, it seems to me such a basic life skill that I would like to see it as part of a core curriculum alongside literacy and numeracy. The second of our core capabilities is an open heart. Empathy and compassion open our hearts to struggle and suffering. They are the basis of positive and enduring relationships, of collaborative behaviour, and of being able to make decisions that benefit all living things. It's said that empathy and compassion are hardwired, and certainly we see them in very young children and also in other social species. But as we know, they can become suppressed. And the question is, how can we revitalise these important functions if they do become suppressed? Well, fortunately, there are good programs out there for increasing empathy, compassion, kindness. And I just want to mention two that relate to children and young people. The first is the kindness curriculum that was developed by Richie Davidson and his colleagues at the University of Wisconsin. A randomized controlled trial showing that after just 12 lessons, there were really fascinating effects. First of all, increased social competence, increased cognitive ability, and also the behavioural effect of being able to delay gratification, which we know is associated with many good outcomes later in life. Now, this program has been integrated into a larger program called Think Equal. Think Equal is a 30-week program for 3 to 6-year-olds that has been adopted in 16 countries across 5 continents. It aims to increase social emotional learning, inclusion, and equality. The largest trial of the Think Equal program has recently been completed in Australia, and data analysis is currently underway on the quantitative aspects of the data. But I thought you might be interested to see the qualitative data from the teacher reports. So you can see that the program seems to have had beneficial effects on conflict resolution, on the fact that racial characteristics are no longer used as a basis of behaviour, and also that children bring their learning into the family. So they help older sibs and even parents with difficult emotions or with conflict. So it's really encouraging that these programs make such a difference at these young ages. And like mindfulness, I believe they should be a core part of any school, preschool curriculum. The final core capability that I want to talk about is clear thinking, which some people refer to as critical thinking. And this is about evaluating information so that we can make informed choices. And of course, it's never been more challenging to do this with all of the fake news that's around, with micro-targeted algorithms that serve to identify our beliefs rather than challenge them. But I want to talk about a couple of ways that this can be done, again, with children and young people. In many schools, critical thinking skills are part of the syllabus, but it's not clear how effective they are. On the other hand, colleagues in Cambridge have developed a fake news game, which high school students find very engaging. They're tasked to create a fake news story using all the techniques of misinformation. And what is found is that at the end of playing this game, the students are much more able to spot fake news and misinformation. And the other example I want to give is an example in primary school in Uganda. Now, in Uganda, there are many myths about treatments for health conditions. And these myths really need to be challenged because many of them are quite dangerous. A program was established across half the schools in Kampala. 11,000 children were randomized to this 9-week program. And it used comic strips, games, and songs to teach children how to evaluate health information. And at the end of the 9-week period, the children in both groups were given a test. And the difference in the children who were able to pass the test and those who were not is absolutely staggering. You rarely find differences of this magnitude in any studies. So clearly, using this very engaging approach, it was possible to teach children how to properly evaluate claims about health treatments. And again, this gives us great hope that all sorts of other things can be taught in these engaging ways that help children to think clearly about a range of issues. Now, what happens if we bring these 3 core capabilities together? This could be described as a combination of attending, befriending, and comprehending. And thanks to my son for suggesting that. These 3 capabilities together lead to wise action. And what we've been looking at, my colleagues and I, is how to apply these ideas across the various domains of life, from childhood and education through to economics, politics, and the environment. And we've put our thoughts about this into a book called Creating the World We Want to Live In. This looks at the challenges that confront each of these domains, but provides a solution-focused approach to how to deal with these challenges and create flourishing in each of the domains. The book also offers practical ideas for action. So the hope is that this book, which we saw as a milestone in our journey that began with this chance meeting in the departure lounge at a French airport, our hope is that this will inspire others to take action, wise action, to make the world a more flourishing place. Every decision we make, every action we take has an impact on our own well-being and the well-being of those around us, and has ripple effects right across the wider world. Let's choose to act wisely so that our actions, no matter how small, add up to make a positive difference. And if we join with others, the difference will be magnified. And at times where it's very difficult and when we confront obstacles, joining with others helps us to feel empowered and energized to keep on going. An important step along the way is to ensure that we teach these skills for wise actions to children and young people, and that we encourage them to take their own initiatives and support them in doing so. Because after all, the future is their future. So in conclusion, I'd like to acknowledge that change is always difficult, but with wisdom, courage, and realistic hope, we can create a flourishing, fair, and sustainable world. And we invite you to join with us on our continuing and crucial journey.